Hey, what's going on, guys? Mike here, back in the aquarium lab in front of the Avatar tank. We haven't gotten an update from this aquarium in a long time. I apologize for that. And on top of that, this is probably going to be the last time that you guys are going to be seeing this tank. Now, don't worry, I'll explain all that in a second. That's the whole point of this video, as well as like the story of what's happened in this tank since you guys saw it last, since the whole crayfish debacle happened. And yes, I am going to be tearing this tank down here in the next, couple of weeks. But basically, we're going to be setting up a whole new Avatar aquarium, guys. It's going to be bigger, it's going to be better, it's going to be more intricate, and it's going to be awesome. So while you might be sad to see this tank go, I am, trust me, I'm sad to see it go. But we will be doing something really, really cool here very soon. So what's been going on in the Avatar aquarium since we left it last? And I think the last update video was when, I pulled the female crayfish out and the whole crayfish thing was, the experiment was over. So if you guys haven't seen those videos, I'll link them in the description. I recommend you go check them out. It was, an experiment, like I said, some trial and error learning took place, and it was a pretty good experience overall for me, despite the way it turned out. So as you can see, the aquarium, is pretty much just a huge mess. I've really let things go in here. You can see a lot of the moss is just like stripped off of the rocks here. And that's because when I was setting up Shrimp Mountain, I took moss from this tank and, I was rooting around in here and just, using the bits and pieces of it that I, could spare. So, here we have a shrimp molt down here, one of the bamboo shrimp. He's right there. You can see how much lighter his pigment is because he just shed. But basically what happened in this aquarium, besides me neglecting it, let's back up first, okay? So after the crayfish thing happened, once the crayfish were out of this tank, I started to notice that my cherry shrimp population was beginning to decrease, okay? Like every week I would notice when I would feed, there would be less and less shrimp that would come out to feed. And so I was trying to figure out, why is that? There's no reason for them to be like capping out. There's tons of space in here. The environment of the tank is, a lot more stable than it was. Remember, we used this active substrate paired with my already fairly soft tap water, caused the pH to be really low, and the KH and GH were basically undetectable with test kits, at least. So not the ideal environment for these organisms, or for, most organisms for that matter. But what happened was, the substrate over time, it lost its ability to reduce those factors. And so we were in a stable set of parameters. Our pH was a little bit higher. It was, up to almost, I think it was like 6.8. Fairly consistently 6.8, and the GH and KH were, back up to somewhat normal levels. I was getting, 3, 4 on the test kit, between 2 and 4. So, things were looking good, but my shrimp population was starting to decrease. So, I just kept doing what I was doing. There wasn't really much I could change. And then what happened next was I made a little bit of a mistake. So when I was moving my fish out of the 72 gallon and into the 125, I did that a while back. You might not remember, but I moved all my fish from the 72 over here on my right over to my 125 way over on the other side of the room. And so when I did that, I was just going back and forth with my net, and for whatever reason I was thinking about this tank. I don't know what I was, I wasn't thinking at all. What I did was I accidentally took a net full of my gold tetras and I just put them into this tank. And I have no idea why. Like, I have no idea why I did that. I was just caught up. And so I had a huge net full of, I don't know, there was something like 10 gold tetras that ended up in here, and they're really small. There's some in the back. So you can see one kind of poking out right there. There's like 4 of them left in here. I got as many out as I could, but these guys are the smart ones. They will not come out of that corner. So despite setting traps and doing all these other things to try and get the fish out, there's no way, because I can't root around up here with all the fishing line and all the delicate stuff that is in this tank. So I had to just leave them in. And so, they're a fish that you wouldn't think would pick on the shrimp, maybe the super tiny ones, but some of the bigger shrimp that are still left in here, there's a couple. They're hard to find. There's one, see, there's another dead one right there. Very strange. Let's zoom in on that guy. It's very strange. So I wasn't, 100% sure that those gold tetras were responsible for, killing or eating the shrimp or anything like that, but it was just kind of like another thing that happened. Other than the shrimp population declining, everything else in the tank is fine. The bamboo shrimp are doing great. They still hang out on their rock over here. The marbled hatchets up there at the top, they're doing fine. So it's just kind of like a weird thing that happened. I'm not a shrimp expert by any means, guys. So if any of you guys are, feel free to let me know what your theories are on why my population decreased so much. So, that was kind of weird. That took some of the motivation out of me with this aquarium, and it just started to go. My interests shift like they do all the time, and I knew that I wanted to redo this tank. And so add that on top of it, and you stop doing as many water changes, you stop pruning things, you start taking things out and not really putting them back into place, and then here you are, 5 months later. I removed CO2 from this tank pretty early on in its existence, and when we started the aquarium, there was only a tiny little bit of CO2 that bubbled up into the power head. So what I wanted to mention about that was just, the fact that plant growth in here hasn't been, spectacular or anything. And that was never really the point. Again, we're using a lot of slow growing plants that aren't going to do much anyways. The Anubias nana, Nana petite. The Java fern is probably the fastest growing plant in here, or the moss. And you can see that, the moss has spread out quite a bit. Besides the fact that, I haven't really trimmed it all that much. The Java ferns, definitely, you can tell they've grown quite a bit. The one in the back, it's kind of hard to see because there's all this stuff in the way. But they have grown quite a bit, and the leaves look really healthy. Java fern is a plant that loves low light, and I think it does the best in a low light situation. And the moss has done really well. The Java moss down in the bottom, the Christmas moss that we put up at the top here, it's all done really well. It did what I wanted it to do. The few portions of Bucephalandra that we put in the tank also, nothing crazy happened to it. I didn't really get any leaf loss, a little bit from a few different plants, but overall, it's just kind of hung out and done its thing, which is to not really grow that much. When I go to take this tank down, I'm gonna have to do it at the perfect time because I want to take out a lot of the substrate and use it for some other tanks. So I think what I'm going to do here in the next couple of days is start to break the tank down from this corner and on. I'm going to leave these rocks up here in the meantime, but I'm going to start to take out this stuff, take the moss out, and then actually take some of the substrate out and start using that in some of the smaller tanks that I have. Remember, I mentioned in the last video that I thought I might get antsy and set up that little desk tank that I have. I think that's what I'm going to do, and I think I'm going to use this substrate. So I'll be doing that here in the next couple of days, and that video should be coming out to you guys really soon. I ended up just throwing a bunch of stuff in here. You can see there's some AR tissue culture stuff that I put in there just for fun to see if it would grow in this really low light. There's like a random stem of Camboba up there. There's some floating Riccia up at the top, getting all over the place. There's another big pad of it. There is a little bit of BBA in this tank, on the Anubias leaves. That's a common place for it to pop up, on the wood. And of course over here by where, the most of the flow is in the aquarium, that's another common place for it to pop up. And, just not dealing with it has, led to it kind of, it's not taking over or anything. I wouldn't say that by any means, but it is kind of an issue. But I'm really excited though, despite the fact that this tank got away from me. I'm just really looking forward to setting up the new one. And so I won't say, what dimensions of the tank the new Avatar tank is going to be, but it's going to allow me to have a lot more room to play around in and do some really cool stuff with the floating rocks and different things that I have sort of in my mind that I think will look cool. So it's going to be nice. I have this whole setup that I can basically pull out. I'm going to have to modify it quite a bit. But I will try and reuse, you know, all of this stuff in the new tank, rearrange it, and it should look totally different. And I do have some interesting ideas for the hardscape down at the bottom of the tank, because I think that's something that, you know, you could do some cool stuff with that I really didn't take advantage of here on this build. So yeah, that's pretty much what's been happening in the Avatar tank since you guys saw it last. I mean, not really anything other than the typical things that happen to an aquarium that get neglected. But like I said, I'm really excited to move on from this and take what I learned from this aquarium and apply it to the new one and just make it like 10 times cooler, hopefully. Be on the lookout for the new Avatar aquarium, guys, in like a month. So I'm getting really close to getting into fish tank office time. I have a bunch of stands built. If you follow me over on Instagram, you saw one of the new stands and one of the new tanks already. So be sure to go check that out if you don't already follow me over there. And yeah, let's get going here. I'm super excited to start building these new tanks. I think that is gonna wrap it up for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new and check out the other videos related to the Avatar aquarium. They're, you know, fairly interesting, I think. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we will see you very soon.